There's a grey lock or two in the brown of your hair. There's some silver in mine too, I think. But through all those long years, through laughter and tears, those two eyes of blue kept smiling through at me. And if ever I'm left in this world all alone, I will wait for my call patiently. And if heaven be kind, I will wait there to find those two eyes of blue still smiling through at me.
I was born in 1936.
And where were you born?
I was born in the hospital in Mullingar.
Hospital.
Yeah, it was only opened that year, the hospital.
Okay.
So
Oh,
it
right,
was
only
new.
open. Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And what was your mother's name and your father's name?
My mother's name was, her maiden name was Margaret Salmon, and my father's name was Peter Seary. And I have one sister, Kathleen. She's older than me, about 3.5 years older than me. So her mother died when I was born, and my granny reared us then until we were about, Kathleen was about 7 and I was four that.
Was it your father's mother or your mother's mother?
My father's mother.
Okay.
Yeah, she was from Rosemount.
Okay, that's where your father came from?
I think
Okay,
so, yeah.
direction, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and you grew up just there across the road from... Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not lovely. And
Yeah.
Grandad, when were you born and where were you born?
I was born above where Jimmy is now in one of them cottages. 87 years ago. It was on the 1931, 15th of January 31. And I'm the oldest of 12 in my family.
6 boys and 6 girls.
Yeah, 6 boys and 6 girls.
And what did your father do for a living?
He was a carpenter and small contractor. And a lot of his work at that time, he used to repair cottages in the county, different all around, and there'd be an area of cottages, and he'd have to do windows, whatever had to be done in repairing them. That was a big part of his. And then he used to restore old houses, and that was a big part of. Though I served my time with him there, and we had a little workshop attached to the house, and we'd work in there making wheels with carts, and a job, it was a big job, making wheels for carts.
Okay.
There was, and we'd have to get the wood and sawn it in Coolana and
Yeah.
the sawmill there, and build the naft, the centre of the wheel was oak.
Okay.
The spokes were ash, and the fellows went around it were elm. So
Okay.
it was
Three
some job
different
getting the
timbers.
different ones,
Yeah.
but making them, and we'd no electricity in the workshop.
Yeah.
There was an awful lot of work attached to that, but they're all hard work. And then it'd be hurling in the evenings outside the planting, outside the planting there, an old hurling field we had. Then we were involved in plays. My father was very much into amateur drama and had a group, and he was very good in it, and from the time I was very young I joined in it, and used to take part in it, plays, and in singing and then do a bit of dancing. And then we started set dancing, groups of 8 of Irish dancing. And well, you see, I met Margaret, and when she was 16, I fell in love with her, and we got married when she was 21. I was 6 years older. But anyway, we carried on the work and built a house below for my mother and father down in the plant in the wood. We bought that land out there. It was part of Middleton thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, we bought that from them and built a house there in the evenings. So then my father and mother moved down into that new house, and we were in the old house, is that right?
Yeah, we were in it there for 8 years.
8 years. And I built this house during that time.
Okay.
Built this house in the evenings and weekends and
Whenever you'd have money and
whenever anyway, we got it finished.
stuff. We had 5 children when we came down to here.
Then we started doing small contracts, building singular houses and that around. And
When we got married, Garvin's was the first house Mike built when we got married.
Oh, just
Garvin's down the road.
at the boring they're going
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
well,
Joe
we've done a
and
lot
Polly,
of singular house work
Yeah.
around.
built houses, the bungalow for Marielle and Claffey and the shop.
Yeah. With the shop in Castletown.
Yes, and the house across the road that they're doing up now at the minute.
Yeah.
They built that.
And the one,
And the one for Paul Claffey, the bungalow beside
Long list.
beside Ned's shop,
Long list.
beside the pub.
Yeah.
but anyway, we then I got Michael O'Leary's father, Ted O'Leary. He came up from Cork, and he had his family with him, young family, and he came to Ballinagore House first to bought it, and then he used to buy houses. The Land Commission divided farms around, where there was a lot of land to divide among smaller farmers, and left the 5 or 10 acres with the house, and Ted O'Leary bought different ones of them, and I restored them all, and he sold them to the various places. They moved into them themselves, or well, another one was being done up.
Oh, yeah.
Done a lot of that. And then I built a factory for them in Talton Textiles. That was a factory they had down in Cork. Talton Textiles, and then we built that there, and I done other small factories, built them around Mullingar.
And would there have been many contractors kind of doing similar sort of work at the time, or was it the start of kind of seeing that sort of work in there? Was there lots of?
There was some small contractors, not many.
Joe Clark
Yeah,
and the McLavins that time. The McLavins, they had
but
a little building going on. But very slow, very little, and then there was no builders providers in Mullingar. You'd have to go to Dublin for all your stuff
Okay.
or order
at the
it.
start of it.
Yeah.
And the travellers would come around and
Give them orders and pay them for whatever.
pay
they got.
them when they'd come around, and the lorries would come with the stuff and deliver it to where you were working, or
Yeah.
we'll say if you were working near home that bring stuff and deliver it at your house and
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing.
And as speaking of building and houses, what do you remember with the difference, like when you were growing up? Obviously houses were very different at the time, but what do you remember from like what sort of, like when you grew up, would you have had much in the line of electricity, running water, all sorts of stuff in the house, or is there big, if you remember back when you were growing up?
Well, at the different stages, electricity was into everyone. Rural electrification came
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
and then water. Some places had to sink wells that hadn't tap water mains. going
We
through.
had no water here. We had to
There
build
was a
it.
pump
We brought it from the river over there, built a pump house in the planting and brought it from there.
first.
Okay, from the river.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I used to go to the pump
There was
in the
pump
terrace
that's up
for
there,
the drinking water.
public pump there.
Yes.
So we
drinking
would
water.
bring in the buckets of water from up there when we come down here, and we're using it when we were up there. We were nearer to it up there,
Yeah.
but we had to be bringing the buckets.
And it was the house in the terrace would have been a good bit smaller than this house now was.
Oh yeah, there was
Yeah.
just a kitchen and 3 bedrooms.
Yeah,
I don't know how the big families were reared in them, but they were. The kitchen was the main place, and then the 3 bedrooms. And we were the first one to get television around the place when we we were living up there. The lads used to come down from the village to watch racing and things.
That's
and
right.
matches, football and hurling matches.
And you were saying there as well that speaking of stuff that was going on in the village, that you started the Kyotos. You were involved in.
We were
Well, we would
instrumental in it.
be a
Christian.
group, you know, we were in a group that started it, you know.
Well, we formed a group.
Yeah, yeah.
And what did that consist of? Beating up.
Playing music, musicians.
Music, Irish
Singing.
music,
Yeah.
and
Singing.
dancing,
Dancing.
maybe and a few songs. That'd be the
Yeah.
sessions.
Oh.
Sessions every week or fortnight would have
Every
Sessions.
month it was every
And
month.
where would you meet?
in the hall.
Mostly in the hall, and then we used to, we were late then, we were in the pub, you know, in Ned Claffey's
There
pub.
was a wing. There was a
And the
pub.
room at the end of the pub. There.
And so before you set that up, would there have been anything similar going on, or would it have been just sessions in people's houses, or?
Well, there'd be a lot of the house dances.
Yeah.
And that, but
Yeah.
then we had a very strong drama group
The plays during Lent.
done
we
plays
in the village.
in the villages all around. And particularly during Lent, at that time there'd be no dancing during Lent. And the plays, we used to go around the halls, you'd get a crowd at the plays when there wasn't dancing and such.
Saturday night or Sunday night.
And we'd go around to the different villages and bring all your equipment, scenery and effects attached to the plays. And there'd be there'd be a 3-act, generally historic play, followed by a concert, singing and a bit of music and whatever, and ending with a sketch, 1-act sketch. Generally one would write about some functions, some activities around the area, or different ones recruiting for the LDF, different type of
funny.
Yeah.
It'd be funny.
local defence
Oh,
force.
yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
Right, so that'd be kind of amateur. Just you'd be writing them, and they'd be funny sketches, short sketches.
yeah,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
fun to be intended to.
And would you have any record of them anywhere, or would you have them?
No,
No.
no, it'd be no
Continental?
record of them. And there was some such funny happenings
There'd be some good plays though, you know.
with some very good players.
Bard of Armagh.
Colleen Bond and
Oh, yeah,
there would
all
be
them, yeah.
historic players.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say on it? It was a big job learning these players and bringing them then to move, and at that time with pony and strap, pony and cart bringing effects, scenery and all that. Be out all night. It was very time consuming, I think, but we had quite a good dramatic class.
I'll have to give you wee Huey now anyway.
Do, of course you will.
He's gone to school, wee Huey, and him not 4. Sure, I saw the fright was in him when he left the door. But he took a hand o' Dinny and a hand o' Dan, with Joe's old coat upon him. Och, the poor wee man. He cut the queerest figure, more stout nor thin, and trotted right and steady with his toes turned in. I watched him to the corner of the big turf stack, and the more his feet went for it, still his head turned back. He was looking. Would I call him? Och, me heart was woe. Sure as lost I am without him, but he be to go. I followed to the turning and they passed it by. God help him, he was crying, and maybe so was I.
Lovely. Hurling was our main sport here from a very early age. And I used to be working going to school locally. I'd be working in the workshop above, and then when be a ball hit outside, I'd go out late to play hurling there. And then we developed a good team, and we had minor and junior teams coming on, but then we developed a senior team, and we were beaten in the final going into junior, from junior to senior. We were beaten 2 years in a row, I think, by a point. But anyway, when we went senior, I was playing in all these matches. I played for 25 years in the hurling team. In 56, 57, 58, 60 and 64, we won the senior championships at them years that I was playing. And it was very much part of our lives, sport.
Yeah. And do you think, would you say that would you say that has decreased or stayed the same or increased? You would notice.
Well, they're good. It's as good now. They're very stylish hurlers here. We're not very physical, or we weren't then maybe either, but they have great style, which is something I admire in hurling. I think hurling is wonderful sport. It has great movement and anticipation. It's a great sport. Played football too, but I never liked football to the same extent.
Yeah, it hadn't the same level of skill or grace in it.
Football is different now played different than it used to be years ago anyway.
There's a lot of passing
Running
back
up and down and passing.
passing rather than kicking.
Dead loss for you.
Gran, I wanted to ask you as well, so your father was blacksmith.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about that growing up and being around there? What would you see?
Well, I suppose he served his time in Loughnane Valley to a man by the name of Matt Keenan. And he was 4 years at that. And then he went to Glasson. This was now before he got married. Went to Glasson, he was working there for a good while, and then
that's where he met your
mother there, and then she went to America.
With a lot of her brothers.
Her brothers, 5 of them went to America, so she headed off to, I don't know what.
To
anyway,
housekeep for them, I think.
She was the eldest of the family, so she headed off with them, so then he went. So there were, I suppose, 3.5, 4 years in America. And they got married then and came home. So he set up the business in Clonagh.
Of blacksmith.
Side where you know where it is, the little forge.
Still there. Any idea what would have brought him to Clonagh?
Sorry?
Any idea what would have brought him to Clonagh?
Well, you see, he came home. His mother and father were living there, sure.
Oh, his mother and father
Yeah.
lived in Clonagh.
Oh, yeah, that's where they lived.
Okay, so they didn't. Did they come?
And they were living in it before he went to America. That's where they started in Rosemount, but then they come to Clonagh to live.
Okay, so his parents moved to Clonagh before.
Yeah.
I'll have you now.
Yeah, so he
It
came
was
home
he
there
himself moved down to
Yeah.
Glasson working as a blacksmith,
Yeah.
but was still living there.
I'll have you
But he
now.
came back then to his parents' place, and that's where he was. So he worked there then, and I remember it when I was only a little one. There's a photograph of me there, working, helping him in the forge. Well, when I got bigger, I helped him in the forge, and I was great at, there was no electricity that time either, and you had to have a lamp, and sometimes at night he'd show horses would be busy all day, and he'd show them at night, and you'd be there with a lantern, holding the lantern for him while he'd be doing the show, and he had no other light to do them, or no electricity. He'd done all with his hands, and hammer and sledge and whatever. And he used to show wheels as well.
Shoe wheels.
Cart wheels.
Oh, the metal
Yeah.
strip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoe.
And he used to light a fire down in the field. That used to be great sport for us, because he used to have to make a round fire, the size of the wheel,
Yeah.
To heat.
and with sods of turf and all that. And he'd light it and have it all lit and put the hoop into it and redden it and make it, whatever he'd do, he'd have it ready for putting on the wheel, and then he had to put the wheel, the minute the hoop would go on it, you see, it'd be all smoky and going to kind of light up. He'd have to throw it into the river. He had to be beside the river to throw it into the river to cool it down, and seemingly it'd tighten on the
Wheel
on the wheel then,
wooden
and
wheel.
it'd be, yeah,
That was the river down the back of the
that would
house.
be showing the wheels.
Yeah.
Showing the
Yeah, that was down past our house and in the fields.
I was going to say, I remember you saying as well that you remember the travellers coming around.
Oh
You
yeah,
were saying they used to be really nice.
oh
when
yeah.
you'd see-
They were grand people, and they were very fond of my father, because being in the forge with him, and being in the heat in the winter time, they'd go into the forge to him, and they used to camp just down the road from us, and they'd get milk in our house and bread and eggs or whatever they wanted, and they used to light a big fire at night in front of the camps. And you'd love to see them all sitting around the fire, and the little babies and kids and everything, the mothers and all. And they'd be chatting one another and having a great time and drinking tea or whatever they'd be at, and those tin mugs. And they'd be after making those mugs themselves. There was a few tinsmiths with them, and they were able to make the tins, Or if you had a saucepan or a kettle that was leaking, and give it to them, and they used to put a thing called a pot mender into the hole, and they'd fix it up and have it going for you. They were great. Do you remember them,
Yeah.
Mike? Yeah. And they'd be selling, the women used to make flowers out of paper, and they'd be going around selling the flowers and the pots that the husbands would make, and they were grand people. It'd be the shawl, and the baby would be in the shawl, and they'd be going around. Yeah, they were very nice. And then they used to, some of them, the King of the Tinkers, he used to be around. What's his name was? Was it Joyce?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he'd be in the forge a lot. And he used to make money. He had a mole, that
Right.
would say half a crown
half
or
a
whatever,
crown.
and he'd be able to make the money. And the wife used to carry the mole down here, you see, and the guards couldn't get it. The guards would be coming looking for this, you see, because this was illegal, you see, to be making the money, but the mole was hid, and they wouldn't get it, you see, couldn't get it. She had it.
That's a great
It
one.
was very funny.
And it seems from what you're saying as well, it seemed back in the day, it seemed a lot more like if someone had come looking for a bit of grub or a bit of it would seem more people kind of shared a bit more. Was that, did you, like when you say they come around, you give them a bit
very,
of it?
very much so.
Oh yeah, they'd be coming for a cup of sugar and all that kind of stuff went on among neighbours, you know. Yeah.
And different travellers would go around, fellas, maybe weren't great with their family or something, and they went on the road, but would call to us up here regularly,
Yeah.
and they'd have tea and that and give them something going. And
Even when we got married and were living here all the years, and we had this kid small and that, there was a woman, she was come from Geoghegan to here for to get the cast-offs, you know, the small clothes and all that. And the kids remember her coming, she'd have the baby in her arms, and I'd have a bag of clothes for her, and she'd come in and drink tea and all that, and go off to, you know. Sure, there was grand people long ago, you know, and there was no, we'll say, anyone breaking into houses or
no
that.
violence.
That never happened long ago. You could leave a door open the whole time and no one would bother going in or near you.
Yeah, you often hear people say that it was, people talk about the past, they kind of say it was simpler times where people were more easygoing, or it was quieter and slower.
Well, yeah.
It seems to be.
Then, of course, there was no cars, hardly any cars. Lads and bikes going and walking.
Yeah.
Walk to Mass or walk wherever you wanted to go. Then you'd have big snow. You'd have snow for maybe 2 weeks. Big fall of snow, and it'd be out, and you'd just have to cope with it, you know. Walk wherever you were going.
And it might be a stupid question, but were the roads very different? In that, would you have the tarmac or gravel, or what had you done on the roads?
There'd be potholes and everything.
Yeah,
the roads were very bad.
Gravel more.
Yeah, you'd be going on the bike, you'd be hopping in and out of the potholes.
There was another old one, it's an American farm type song, which was one I liked. I remember hearing it.
Isn't it?
The Banks of the Wabash, the name of it. And I liked it. We'll try that one. Round an Indiana homestead waves the cornfields. In the distance looms the woodland, clear and cool. Oft times my thoughts revert to scenes of childhood, when first I got my lesson, nature's school. But one thing there is missing in the picture, for without her face it seems so incomplete. I long to see my mother in the doorway, as she stood there years ago, her boy to greet. For the moonlight's fair tonight along the Wabash. From the fields there comes a breath of new mown hay. Through the sycamore the candlelights are gleaming on the banks of the Wabash far away. Many years have passed since I strolled by the river, arm in arm with sweetheart Mary by my side. Oh, 'twas there I tried to tell her that I loved her. Oh, 'twas there I begged of her to be my bride. But many years have passed since I strolled through the graveyard. She is sleeping there, my angel, Mary dear. How I loved her, though she thought I never meant it. How I'd give the future were she only here. For the moonlight's fair tonight along the Wabash. From the fields there comes the breath of new mown hay. Through the sycamore the candlelights are gleaming on the banks of the Wabash far away.
It's stuff.
Lovely. Lovely. Granda, can you tell me a bit about your extended, or if you go back to, say, your grandfather, or how far back you would know stories of where your relations originally came from?
Well, my grandfather came from Marlfield in Clonmel, Tipperary. The big estate there, and they used work managing the cattle. They were very good at this, their family. And my grandmother on that side, she came from Kilcommon, up in the mountains in Tipperary, in a different part of it.
You know that yourself.
No, so anyway, my grandfather met her there. I think there was a pub there that her relations owned. She was helping out in it, and he met her in that. And they got married and moved to different places all over the country. He was supposed to be a brilliant man with cattle, a herd they called him. And he moved to big estates in Wicklow. Powers Court Estate is one of the biggest in Ireland. He moved to there for years, and some of their family were born there. And he moved to Cong in Mayo.
To Ashford, was it?
Ashford
Castle
Cong.
there, yeah.
Big estate also. And he was there for years. And he lost these jobs. He used to be having a drink at night or something, and there'd be stories being carried, and lost the jobs eventually anyway, after a few years in both places. And he came to Castletown Geoghegan here, to Middleton Park, Boyd Rochford's estate. And he was there for a few years there, and some of their family was born in all these. But anyway.
Your father was born here.
My father was born here.
Over in Middleton there.
Yeah. But anyway, when he lost the job there, he opened a butcher's shop in the village, and that's how it came to be in Castletown Geoghegan. And the family ran the butcher's shop for years. He died young. He was only 50 when he died. And his wife, and she was a small little thin woman, and she was kind of managing the butcher's shop and cutting meat, and some of the sons were working at it.
And do you remember her?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
And would you have met your grandfather? He didn't die before you?
No, I didn't meet him. I think I remember something about, I was only a year old or something like that when he died. Seeing the surprise of my father being so upset and that about him. But I didn't know him. I knew her well.
What do you remember about her?
She was very fond of dancing. She was a great step dancer. Even in her old age, she was catch the back of the chair in the kitchen, the back rails of it, and danced if there was any music came on the radio. And she danced that, and she was insisting on I dancing too, was it? Wouldn't it be there? But hard working, very hard working people.
And would you have heard any stories in Owenton about, would say, going back another generation? Would you have heard any stories up and down, or kind of ends there?
No, and then my mother's people came from Kinnegad.
Oh yes.
And we were less in contact with them, even though they're only 20 mile away from home. A lot of them went to England to work, and they're still around Geoghegan, some of them, but it was mostly my father's people then when they came around.
And I wanted to ask the two of you as well, if you remember when you were younger growing up, what the kind of feeling was around Ireland at the time regarding, we say, people would talk about it was closer in history to stuff like the War of Independence, all these different things that would have happened maybe in your parents' time. And do you remember, had that kind of died away, those sort of feelings, the tension? Would people have still told a lot of stories, or would it have been something that would have been present kind of in the conversation?
I used to hear my father talking about the black and tans.
Yeah, they were.
I didn't like the black and
What
tans.
did your father say about the black
These
and
were
tans?
terrible.
Well,
They were a crowd that instead of having them in jail in England.
seemingly
was
proud that they were
rampant
let
on
out
them.
of the jail in England. But anyway, he was working in Glasson at the time, and they used to be in the barracks there. The barracks was very near there in Athlone, and they used to come out there in lorries out to where he was working. But lucky enough to hear them coming, because there'd be no car, there was nothing much travelling, and they'd hear the lorries coming and they'd get out of the way. But there was a couple of people shot in the village in Glasson. There was one woman he often told us about her, said she put her hand out to take in her child. She was on a pram outside and she was shot at the door.
Yes.
They were
They
dangerous lot,
terrible
black
group.
and tans, yeah.
They were. They collected the worst type of people they could and sent them over to terrorise.
Yeah, they were.
So,
I used to hear my father talking about them.
yeah. So that would have been very much in the in living in memory then.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a small farm at home, about 10 acres, I suppose. That's all about was in it. But still, we got to live off that. You had eggs, butter with 3 cows. Wouldn't have to go to the shop only for paper or whatever, or sugar or tea.
Hey,
Because we had our own eggs, butter, milk, meat. We used to we'd kill a pig, we'd have meat. We had apples, rhubarb, plums, gooseberries, all the fruit we needed. So with potatoes, cabbage, all the vegetables, all sowed in the little garden. And we had everything in that little farm there. And then we had the turf with our own bog. We didn't have to be buying turf or paying for it to be cut or anything. So we had everything like that at home. And all the little small farmers around had the same. Everyone sowed their vegetables and all that kind of stuff.
your recitation now.
Yeah, we'll say the recitation now in a minute.
But it seems then, it feels that maybe would you say that back then the houses were more active, maybe people were, like, you would have been around the house nearly all the time, the whole family.
Well, yeah.
Like,
Well,
would have been a more industrious place.
there's no one in my house, only my father and my mother, will say. But he did all that digging, and so I don't know how he did it, and did the forge as well. He used to sow a garden and do all that. And then he'd have hay for the cows, have that going on as well. We'd be all working from the time we were young, doing different things around the place. Bringing water from the well and all that. But the shopping now, you'd get the tea and sugar and the paper. And that'd be about it. The same in all the places around.
And when would you have seen that start to kind of die out? Would that have kind of...
Well, it went on in our house until my father wasn't able, I suppose, to do it anymore. But it went on for years and years. That kind of thing. It was all self-sufficient.
Fantastic. Now everything you can get out of it. And did you say he used to keep bees as well? I remember.
Well, we had bees, yeah, and honey. Yeah.
Very little you couldn't
Yeah.
get.
Well, and the fairs long ago used to be good. We used to the fair long ago on Geoghegan and Terrace Pass and was there a fair in Castletown? No, not really.
Why go on at the fair?
You'd be up at 5 o'clock in the morning bringing the calves or whatever you had to sell, bringing them to the fair.
Driving them.
When you drive them along the road, there was no lorries or anything, and you'd meet up with other ones coming from different directions, maybe the old road or whatever, and the whole lot would be going into Geoghegan in the early morning. We used to always go to the fairs with my father. He'd have us flying into ditches and stopping at gaps and keeping them out of the fields. And then you could be all day there with them in the thing before you'd sell them. It'd be all there in the fairs. You'd have different places to stand.
Whereabouts was that?
Along in the street.
On
the street in Geoghegan. Or Terrace Pass, wherever you went to with your calves or cows. And then there was pigs as well, and sheep and everything. Be all at the fairs. And you were lucky enough to sell. We used to usually sell, and then maybe if you bought something, then you had a job of bringing them home in the evening. But usually he wouldn't maybe buy anything. We'd be selling stuff, and it was great. The fairs were great. Long ago, but they're all gone now too. Gone long ago. And the bargains, to be making bargains, you see. And you'd always have a third. It always takes more than two to make a bargain. The third man would come in, you see. He'd be on the sideline and he'd be hearing how much do you want for your calf or whatever, and you'd say £20 or whatever, and of course you wouldn't get the full amount you'd be asking for, and then he'd say, here, give me your hand here, and he'd hold out his hand, and he'd say, I'll give you such a thing like that. And the seller wouldn't agree, and he'd say, and then the third man would come in, you see. He'd say, well, what are you asking? Well, I'm asking, we'll say £20. And your man is going to give me, the buyer is only going to give me, we'll say 15. So he'd say, here, come here now. And he'd divide what's between you see, and he'd give your hand another. You could clout my hand and I wouldn't even feel it. But, that's what went on. He knows too as well that that's what went on at the fairs. They'd be making a bargain.
You're getting away from giving us
you'll give me the recitation now.
No.
Yeah.
So you're building up to it.
But I was thinking about that, you see, so I wanted to say to you about the fair.
Of course,
Because there's things that happened long ago that you're interested in.
Yeah. And was it? And I suppose then the town would have been it would have been very active then for the night. People would have been music and stuff going on as well at the fair. Would they have?
Not really. Not really. No, maybe in the pub or the bar. The bars would be open, or pubs, and there'd be lads drinking and be win and have a few pints and come out then and you see how the thing was going and all that. Sure, look at it was good. Yeah. So we were only kids that time. So I go with this poem.
No.
I hope I think of it now. You ask me what defence is mine here with your armoured bands. You only mock the prisoner who is helpless in your hands. What would defence avail me, though good it be and true, here in the heart of London town, with judges such as you? You gravely talk about my crime. I own no crime at all. The deed you blame might do again, should such a chance befall. You say I've helped the foreign foes to war against your queen. Well, challenged so, I'll proudly show what have that helping been. On that wild day when near our coast the stately ships of Spain, caught in a fierce and sudden storm, for safety sought in vain. When wrenched and torn mid mountain waves some floundered in the deep, and others broke on sunken reefs and headlands rough and steep. I heard the cry that off my land where breakers rise and roar, the sailors from a wrecking ship were striving for the shore. I hurried to the frightful scene, my generous people too. Men, women, even children came, some kindly deed to do. We rushed into the raging surf, watched every chance, and when they rose and rolled within our reach, we grasped the drowning men. We took them to our hearts and homes and bade them there remain, till they might leave with hope to reach their native land again. This is the treason you have charged. Well, treason let it be. One word of sorrow for such a fault you'll never hear from me. I only say, although you hate my race, my creed, my name, were your folk in that dreadful plight, I would have done the same. Oh, you would bring me to your queen, low at her feet to kneel, crave mercy from her stony heart, and urge some mean appeal. I answer no. My knees shall bend and prayers of mine arise to but one queen, the Queen of Heaven, high throned above the skies. And now you ask my dying wish, my last and sole request is that the scaffold built for me be fronted to the west. Of my dear country far away one glimpse I cannot see, wherever or however high you raise my gallows tree. Yet would I wish my last fond look should seek that distant shore, so turn my face to Ireland, sirs, of you I ask no more.
What's next one?
I missed a little bit of it.
Would you know much about your mother's family then? They would have come from
Glasses. Not that much, because there was a good few that went to America, and then I met my grandfather a few times, I suppose.
Yeah.
My father he'd have to travel down there. We brought us down a couple of times in a pony and trap now from Ballinagore to Tubberclare down there. And I remember being in the house, the small little thatched house, and very humble kind of place. And the mother had died, my grandmother on that side had died when she was young. And grandfather was there, and my aunt and uncle minding him there. And when I was small at the time, I just remember seeing him. I remember he had a beard. That's what I remember about more than anything.
Was all the brothers went to
Oh,
America?
they all, well, bar
one
two
after-
of them. There was 7 at the minute. Well, let's see, 5. Yeah, there was 7 altogether.
So 5.
7 fellas and 2 girls. And 5 of them went to America, one after the other. And just to come home for a visit, but they all died out there, and they're all there. And they married Irish girls, them all. So where the families there, loads of cousins, I don't know any of them. But anyway.
And what would you remember about school now? Say school was very different. How you went memories of
School.
school?
That was another thing. We used to go on the bare feet in the summertime, and we'd walk to school and walk home in the evenings. And we used to bring a sod of turf in the winter time. All the kids, everyone had to bring in a sod of turf, and that used to keep the fire going. And the teacher would be the one that would get the benefit of the fire. Well, anyway, yeah. So, and then of course, they were very cross, the teachers. You could be slapped or put in the dunce's corner. All that kind of thing used to go on.
And it was the same school in Ballinagore, was it?
Sorry?
With the same school as is now?
Same school, yeah. Same school. And there was 4 teachers. It was, and it was girls in 2 rooms and the boys in 2 rooms. And that was it, yeah. 4
It's the same in Castletown, like. Where I went.
And I'm in. Maybe he wants to get out. Do you want to get out, Chip?
Can I get out?
You want that mouth Paulina? It was the same in Castletown?
Yeah. Well, I
Come on, Jim.
was fairly good at
Doesn't know
school,
what's going on.
No, he's so confused.
and Master
You leave the
Conroy,
door open, you come
he
in.
himself and his wife were teaching a lifetime there, but he wanted me right or wrong to go to secondary school when I was finishing at 14, and he said it was a shame because he taught my father also, and he said since my father, he thought I was most promising pupil he had, and that it was a shame not to go to secondary school. But I said, I'm the oldest of the family at home. I'd be wanting, with my mother and father want me.
That wouldn't, the secondary school wouldn't like be at home anyway.
Yeah.
The evenings at that, wouldn't you?
No, but they'd be going to work and bring in money to
Oh yeah,
help to run the
Yeah.
house.
yeah,
So that's when I started,
yeah.
and I used to be working, even going to school, working in the evenings in the workshop, making
Yeah,
cards and things that for my father with him. And so then I've started building.
I went to work as well when I was finished school.
Where did you work?
14 and a half or that, 50.
Where would you have worked?
I worked in Fenian's College for a year,
Oh, what doing?
and then I went to the hospital to work. So I was 6 years there, I suppose.
What sort of work were you
5
doing?
or 6 years. Well, I was a nurse's aide in the hospital, done general work, looking after the patients and feeding them and doing all that kind of thing, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Kathleen was, she was a cook in the hospital,
Okay.
so, yeah. Like when I was working now, I'd say when I give up work, I couldn't go back to work when I got married, that was it.
Yeah, that was
Finished. That was another thing that went on. The women couldn't go back to work. Once you got married,
And was,
had
was
your
that
family, that was it.
was that just?
Stayed at home and you reared them or whatever.
But was that just kind of the done thing, or was it?
Oh yeah, that
law,
was the time. That was the thing that time.
And would you have liked to have kept on the work inside in Mullingar? Or
Well,
if
I
you
suppose
could?
whatever job you were at, you might have liked to have kept it on for a while, but I don't know, because there was no work anyway.
And trying
You
to
were
raise.
taken back when you got married, like. Like the lads went to America around, what year was that? Around in the 80s, the early 80s. The fellas went to America to work, and there was no work here around that time. And it improved then, and there was a lot of work to be got here that didn't have to be going.
But I tried to make work for our family by getting buildings going at them to make work, and it succeeded. They were able to build their houses around and rear their families. My father had the same outlook. He wanted us all to be near one another, that there'd be weak ones in big families, and that you'd be able to help the weak ones when you're in close proximity to them. Whereas if they're in Australia or America, you won't be able to be in touch to be helpful to them. So, and that worked in our family. We were all able to make a living at home, and my brothers and sisters, and same with our family. I'll finish free. I'll try that one now. I like it. I've met some folk who say that I'm a dreamer, and I've no doubt there's truth in what they say. But sure, a body's bound to be a dreamer when all the things he loves are far away, and pleasant things are dreams unto an exile. They take him o'er the land, across the sea, especially when it happens he's an exile from that dear lovely isle of Innisfree. I wander o'er green hills, through dreamy valleys, and find a peace no other world can know. I hear the birds make music fit for angels, and watch the rivers laughing as they flow.
And then into a humble shack.
And then into a humble shack I wander,
Want to get out.
my dear
Want to
old
get out.
home, and tenderly behold
Here, come
the
on up.
friends I love around the turf fire gathered. On bended
Jim.
knee,
Come on, out.
the rosary
Come on,
is
here.
told.
Come on.
But dreams don't last, though dreams are not forgotten. And soon I'm back to stern reality. For though they pave the footways here with gold dust, I still would choose my Isle of Innisfree.
Okay.
Great stuff.
Lovely one.
Oh, I had an open fire in the first house I was in, and you bake bread and done all your cooking on the fire, and but it was no trouble to me to do that, because that's what I didn't know any better. That's what everyone did. So then I got a gas cooker, and I got a washing machine, twin tub, because you couldn't have the other one because there was no water. You had to bring the water from the pump and fill it up and take it out then in buckets and put it out the back, and it'll be finished washing. And that was going on every other day. You'd have plenty of exercise, I'll tell you that.
Was there many others on the street? Would that have been a new thing now, the washing machine?
Sorry?
Would you have been one of the first to get a
Yeah.
washing machine?
It was. Yeah. And a television.
The washing machine saved a lot of labour, did it? Or what were you doing before the machine? It was all with the...
Oh, the washboard and
Washboard.
the bat, yeah.
We were the
We've done
first to
that
get
as well.
a television around. They used to be all in to look at the matches and hurling and football and racing.
But I remember going into that house before ever I knew Mike, when Mike's mother was in it, and I was only going to school, and I was selling, you know the way you have to sell magazines and that from the school, Far East and all that crack. So I was going around on the bike selling, went into all the houses and selling me books. So I went into Granny anyway, and she was washing at the washboard, and she said, would you mind doing a bit of washing while I'm putting down the dinner? And I said, no, not at all. I washed away. Sure, I was quite happy with this washboard and washed away for her, and she put down the dinner. And she gave me a lovely plate of stew before I left. And I thought it was the nicest thing ever I had, was this plate of stew. And that's the first time I met Granny Kirby. And she bought the book and all off me, so I was quite happy with that. So then, when, remember Grace worked in the hospital as well, and I used to call around for her. I'd cycle around from home, and I'd wait for her here, and with two of us would cycle back into town. And I remember going in, well, Grace, I went in under duress. I didn't want to go in because the place was full. They were all home eating their dinner. And you tell her now.
I remember she just put her head in and we were on. She was real shy and embarrassed. She wouldn't come any further to see was Grace there, and I caught a glimpse of her blue eyes and red rosy cheeks. She was so embarrassed in at the place where we were eating. And I thought she looked lovely.
That was before we ever met or anything.
Yeah.
So we met at a dance in Boher Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was here passing up to Mass and Pony and Trap with her father.
Yeah. And I used to see you too. We used to, Noel and him used to serve Mass. And he used to be running along the road with this little black bag on the shoulder.
That was
He used to see
outfit
them go.
that you be wearing.
I didn't even know what their names was that time. And anyway.
And so then I suppose when you started, what was the story back then when you wanted to start courting someone or something? What was the?
Yeah, well, that was a bit of a job as well. Well, he had a car, you see, so that was good. He used to come into where I worked to meet me there. We used to go to different places.
Or leaving her home from Clonagh
Yeah,
into Mullingar, put her bike in the back of the car.
yeah. But it was all hush hush, you see. You couldn't really tell your parents that time that you had somebody here, because it wasn't, you know, you were young and you'd be supposed to be. And then the hospital as well, they were very strict, the nuns. You only got a pass twice a month to go, we'll say it, go to a dance or go to the pictures. You got, I would say you had to be in at 11 o'clock if you went to the pictures, and 1 o'clock then if you went to a dance.
Oh, you were staying?
When we were working.
Oh,
You used to
you're
stay
staying
in there.
there.
Oh, you'd stay.
Yeah, we stayed in there in dormitories. Yeah. So, and you'd have to clock in then at night when you'd come in, and one of the nurses would let you into your room, and that was it. So they were very strict. Very strict. So we used to get home then 1 day a week, and we could go home the night before and be back in then the next evening around 6 o'clock. And that was it. You were kind of housebound after that. So he used to come in. We used to go to the hops in the county hall. They'd be over at 12 o'clock. Dances, you know, from 9 until 12. So.
And do you remember when would Granny's father first know that you were on the scene, or did you go to meet him, or what was that like, or would you have known him already, or?
Oh, I knew him well, but
Yeah.
he wouldn't want her.
Go on.
He'd think she'd be there all the time with him,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I couldn't let on
Yeah.
that I had anybody around. Most of the ones were the same, you know. It'd be.
But he wanted, then he wanted to break off. He heard that we were going very constant and
Yeah,
wanted it broken off.
yeah. So, yeah.
It worked out anyway. You just didn't break it off.
Yeah, he didn't succeed in that.
Yeah.
But you were 21 then when you got married.
Yeah.
So would they have been in the known long before that?
Sorry?
Would they have known long before that then, or was it recent knowledge for them before the wedding?
I was 16.
Well, she were going out for 4 or 5
From
years.
the time she was
Yeah.
16.
Yeah. Up and down. Well, we broke it off for a while.
Well, that was when he said
Yeah.
he had you warned that
Yeah.
that had to be done, because he he wanted to have you there all the time.
Yeah.
Was
It's an old-fashioned way of going on. Yeah. But then when it was said we were getting married, he was all for it.
Oh,
You know. Yeah.
Changed his mind. That's right. And then of course, then Kathleen
Yeah.
and Peary, so your sister
Yeah.
and his brother then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that have been through you they would have met? Or?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I'm sure he didn't like parting with her either, sure.
I suppose for him maybe it was a small family and
Yeah.
Yeah.
typically he would have had a lot more.
He only had the two of us.
And
Then he moved over to Castletown then and to wind up. He was 5 years living here in Castletown. He sold the
End
place.
house where Pat Clark is in.
Yeah.
He bought
He
that
lived
to
there.
move into there.
But he only lived 5 years there. He wasn't happy in it.
And why did he leave the other place?
Oh, sure, he thought he wanted to be near where we were and
Yeah.
beside us, and he used to be up and down here every day.
Yeah, well, that was a great help to have him here.
Yeah. He was contrary too, you know. He'd have a stick and he'd be hitting the lads with it, you know. He wouldn't be hurt them around, but he'd give them a tip of the stick.
No, and I used to like was mud wall cabin on the hill. I thought it had a nice story in that. And it went like this. Go sell the cow and pig a graw to take yourself away. Your fond old parents you must leave behind. Go seek your fortune, darling, in a land beyond the sea. For in Paddy's land but poverty you'll find. Those were the words my father said as I left old Ireland, and a sad farewell, it's in my memory still, when I packed my bundle on my back and left for evermore that little mud-walled cabin on the hill. The roof is thatched with straw and the walls are as white as snow, and the turf fire boils the pot, I see it still. Old Ireland's grieving on my heart, the place where I was born, in that little mud-walled cabin on the hill. I think I see the turf fire, and it attracts my father's gaze, with my fond old mother sitting by his side. His pipe is lit, the smoke ascends, he's thinking on the time that took his darling boy across the tide. No more we'll join the merry dance upon the kitchen floor, to the music of the bagpipes loud and shrill. No more those happy hours I'll see I've spent in days of yore, in that little mud-walled cabin on the hill. For the roof is thatched with straw, and the walls are as white as snow, and the turf fire boils the pot, oh, I see it still. Old Ireland's grieving on my heart, the place where I was born, in that little mud-walled cabin on the hill.
When first I saw the love light in your eyes, I dreamt the world had not but joy for me. And even though we drifted far apart, I never dreamed but what I dreamed of everyone. I love you as I never loved before. Since first I met you on the village green, come to me, ere my dream of love is o'er. I love you as I loved you when you were sweet, when you were sweet 16. Last night I dreamt I held your hand in mine, and once again you were my blushing bride. I kissed you as I did in old lang syne. As to the church we wandered side by side. I love you as I never loved before. Since first I met you on the village street, come to me, ere my dream of love is o'er. I love you as I loved you when you were sweet, when you were sweet 16. Thank you. I'd like to carry on with it.